For those unaware, this year marks the release of a few new fighting games. Ones that are kind of a big deal. Those being, of course, Grand Blue Fantasy Versus and the new version of Under Night and Birth, that being EXE Lake Clear. It's kind of a long-ass name. Don't sweat it too much. Since Under Night is a favorite of mine, and as someone who knows all too well how daunting fighting games can seem to someone without prior knowledge, I want to make something to help. That way you can stop worrying your pretty little head about all the scary stuff and just take it slow. This video isn't going to be a video on why you should get into fighting games. I'm not here to convince you. If you aren't super interested in fighting games, but you want to know why you should be interested in fighting games, go check out Cosmonaut Variety Hour's video on it. It's a great little personal video on how someone completely disinterested in the genre came to eventually love it. This also isn't going to be some in-depth guide or anything, just hopefully a push in the right direction. Alright, let's mosey. A lot of new fighting game players will come in with experience from action games like beat-em-ups and hack-and-slash titles. At first glance, I can sort of see why someone would think of a fighting game that way. They're both fast-paced genres, focused on dishing damage and like long combos, but I feel like that also leads to a lot of bad habits. Many games won't punish you for running up and spamming your strongest abilities. A lot of them encourage you to rush in headfirst and put caution to the wind, kinda. And while that approach can work when you apply it to fighting games, it isn't going to do you any favors if you don't know what you're doing first. The first thing you need to do when learning how to play fighting games is to clear your head of any preconceived notions you might have of them. For all intents and purposes, this is a blank slate. Get that Smash shit out of here, get that Devil May Cry bullshit out of my face, we're talking about fighting games. Not saying Smash isn't a fighting game, but it's pretty clear the systems aren't really the same. A common problem I see with a lot of players, including myself, is that they feel the need to hold forward whenever they attack, as if it'll give them more range or something. Fighting games tend to have moves bound to holding different directions, though, so they end up throwing out really unsafe moves or something they didn't intend to do at all. Basically, just focus on evicting your mind goblins before judging a game because it doesn't feel like Smash. Some things to keep in mind that work differently from other games. Your directional inputs aren't analog, they're an 8-way digital grid. This is important to keep in mind, as movements and inputs in a fighting game aren't analog motions, they're more like preset commands. You don't have 360 degrees of movement, you have 8. Don't expect to hold only slightly to the left while jumping to just barely nudge that way. You either jump straight up or in a direction, there is no in between. Almost every fighting game runs at 60 frames per second. This only really matters for frame data, but it's good to know for later, because you're going to need that. There is no block button. Unless you're playing Mortal Kombat or Smash, this just isn't a thing. This might seem strange to get used to, but with directional blocking this opens up possibilities for cool stuff like cross-ups, where you confuse your opponent by jumping over their head and making them guess which side the attack will register on. With a block button, that whole interaction just doesn't exist. And this is off script, I kind of forgot to put this in the script, but inputs are all side relevant, so if you're on one side, your inputs will be forward, and on the other side, you got to do the equivalent but backwards. It's pretty simple, you'll get the hang of it. Anyway, that's all just fluff. If you actually want to play a fighting game, you need to figure out. A big concern I see from a lot of people comes in terms of what controller they should use. And loads of people have answered this question already, but let me drive this home for you definitively. Not only does it not matter what controller you use, but also don't restrict yourself to what you might initially think of as a proper controller. Some people play with arcade sticks, console controllers, this full button controller thing called a hitbox, this weird other thing called a mixbox, whatever the fuck, dude. This dude came to a tourney with a fucking Guitar Hero controller. This dude plays with a steering wheel from a racing game. I play with my right hand holding this Xbox controller and my left hand on my fucking keyboard, dude. The main point I want to drive home with this is a big obstacle new players face in starting games is controls. A lot of people have trouble doing motion inputs, and that's fair. The problem, however, in my opinion at least, isn't the difficulty of those motions themselves, but whether or not the player is in sync with their controller style. When I was starting out, I tried playing fully with my controller, using the D-pad. After a bit of practice, I could get out quarter circles easily enough, but dragon punch motions, or half circles, don't even get me fucking started with full circle motions. They were a pretty consistent struggle for me. Not to mention my thumb was constantly cramping up because of the way I tend to press the D-pad. At some point I thought maybe fighting games just weren't for me, but I persevered. The solution wasn't to keep using a control scheme I hated, but to find a new one that works better for my personal preference. I like the buttons on my controller, but I really hated the D-pad. So what was stopping me from using my keyboard? I found motions much easier to do on it, I no longer get physical cramps, and I ended up sticking with it for life. I still can't do a full circle motion to save my life, but at least I don't play grapplers. So basically, if you don't like your D-pad, try your analog stick. If not, try an arcade stick, or a keyboard, or a hitbox, or anything you can get your hands on. Take some time to experiment with what feels best for you, specifically. Once you find a good match, you might be surprised how much easier things will become. While watching a fighting game from a spectator's perspective might give you the idea that fighting games are these no-holds-barred, non-stop battles of aggression from either side, you might be kind of surprised to find that fighting games are actually somewhat turn-based, just not in the manner you might think. But to go over that, we have to go over... Neutral is basically what it sounds like. It's a state of the game when neither player is at advantage and both are trying to get in on their opponent. To grossly oversimplify, this is the phase that, depending on who plays better, will dictate who takes their turn first. As soon as one player gets the other player in a compromising situation, such as hitting them or having them block, it is now the attacker's turn. Oh look, you're in. You managed to win neutral and either hit your opponent or made them block. You did it. You're the winner. The ball is in your court, you control the situation, and you fucked up. This ain't a card game, dumbass, gotta keep the fuck up, come on! See what that guy did? He stole your turn. See what I'm getting at? Whoever's in control of the game at any given moment has the turn. It's up to the defender to decide how they're going to try and get the most desirable outcome. If all goes well, they'll block everything and end up getting a chance to secure themselves a turn. The attacker, on the other hand, is trying to apply constant pressure and try to break past the opponent's defenses. When the attacker pulls some tricky shit to try and open the opponent up, that's called a mix-up. If the defender finds an opening and manages to get their own pressure going, it's now their turn. Every fighting game has its own number of defensive and offensive systems to help or hinder either position. So, do your research, kiddo. Stop. So, you open them up, got a combo, and now they're just sitting there on the floor. This doesn't happen every time you finish a combo, and in some games it barely happens at all, but there's always a moment where the opponent is recovering from your attacks and has to wait for a whole-ass animation to play before they can do anything. And you still have full control. This obviously leaves you at an advantage. Here's where Uncle Frog is going to teach you some inside baseball. The actions you take during the opponent's wake-up animation is what we in the business call okazeme, which means, hang on, okazeme, Japanese. What the fuck? It doesn't matter. It's okazeme. You can shorten it to oki. You'll get the hang of it. Some characters are built around their awesome okazeme options. It's a huge part of most fighting games, and it's an interaction that'll happen several times per match, so making sure you know your options is kind of essential. But what about the poor dude on the floor? They're at a disadvantage. How is that fair? Well, here's where the mind games come in, folks. Some moves make you invincible. Suddenly the dude bro with advantage is feeling a little hesitant to go so hard on his Oki, and oop, Mr. Invincible got blown the fuck up because you think you can do that without getting punished? No! There's a delicate balance inherent to playing the Oki game. Faking out your opponent and securing an advantage for yourself is your goal. Make sure you're aware of your options for using and defending against Oki. I couldn't think of a good transition. Alright, listen, and this part's important. Nobody's expecting you to pick up the game and start doing 75% combos with 94 hits and a million different particle effects flying everywhere. Just go into your game's training mode, or its trial mode, or whatever, and learn one combo. If you can learn one basic bread and butter combo, and get the hang of using it consistently, then you'll do fine for a good while. You can worry about harder stuff later when you naturally improve and get a better feel for the game you're playing, and the character you choose. For my first few months of playing Unist, I did nothing but this shitty-ass auto combo on Akatsuki that did no goddamn damage and had awful scaling for supers and left me with literally no Oki options, and I still won games. Not often, mind you, but I had the ability to. When you start playing any kind of competitive game, you're inevitably gonna lose a lot when you start. And that's okay. You don't need to win to have fun. Arguably, some of the most fun I've had in fighting games is getting completely dumpstered by somebody, using a strategy I've never seen before, and me learning something about the game as a result. And if you apply that gained knowledge in the next game you play, you'll slowly build a repertoire of tools you may have initially not known even existed, and come to find ways to beat strategies you originally thought invincible. Feeling yourself improve is one of the best aspects of these games, and it's the one so many people never get to, because they don't take that extra bit of commitment to really go below the surface of what these games can really provide. Hey, mask off real quick. These games are worth the time sink. I think most people who say they don't like fighting games haven't given them enough time to properly sink in, or maybe haven't found the right one for them. It doesn't really speak to them properly. I know this because I was the same way. For the longest time, I described myself as just not liking fighting games. But then I found Under Night, and after a while, picking at the wall with a spoon, I made an opening. Something clicked, and all of a sudden I was constantly thinking about new combo routes, looking up frame data, duking out for hundreds of matches online. For you, that game could be Mortal Kombat, or Street Fighter, or Guilty Gear, or fucking Arcana Heart for all I care. Once you truly get absorbed, these things stop becoming chores. They start being a lot of fun, actually. So for this section, I don't really have any recommendations. Some people will give you a roadmap for how you should learn, but I think you should just let yourself learn with how you play. If you really like to practice combos in training mode, go for it. If you like watching pro players and trying to replicate their strategies, go for it. If you just like jumping into ranked and going with the flow, fucking have a field day, man. Eventually, you'll probably find yourself doing all these naturally anyway. Just have fun with it. Fighting games are, at least in my opinion, about your personal journey as a player to improve and have fun doing. It was at the end of the script there. That was a good line read, too. That's staying in. Secret section! So this is originally where my script stopped, but I think it'd only be fair to point you in the right direction of some other content that helped me and entertained me. So I hope we can do the same for you. Aside from the awesome video by Cosmonaut Variety Hour I mentioned already, I want to give a shout out to Wooly Versus of former Super Best Friends fame. Nowadays on his solo channel, he plays a wide variety of games and posts clips from his podcast, but I want to focus on his weekly live show, appropriately titled Get Into Fighting Games. Basically, Wooly, his friend Reggie, and usually a guest of some kind play a fighting game, more often than not having little to no experience in them. They go through the basics of the tutorials, try a few matches online. It's all good fun, you know? Not only is it just fun to watch, but it also could introduce you to some cool new fighting games you didn't know about before. If you're not sure what game you want to try, take a look. Another shout out goes to Sejam, a pretty big head in the FGC who posts videos on his YouTube channel of his Twitch streams, usually just cut down to the relevant stuff. He talks a lot about learning fighting games, the mentality you should have behind learning fighting games, and he also just talks a lot about the FGC as a whole. It's really fun. And finally, and this shouldn't come as a surprise to anybody who knows about the channel already, but a huge shout out to Core Gaming. This is probably the best YouTube channel revolving around fighting games, period. Every single video of theirs is worth watching, and there are a ton of them focused on new players and learning. In fact, if you want a crash course in fighting game terminology, do yourself a favor and watch their awesome video called Why Button Mashing Doesn't Work. It's a lifesaver. Hey, thank you so much for watching my video. Before you go, I have some people to shout out who made this video possible. If your ears felt good during this video, it was most likely because of Will Fox Piano's awesome music that I was so graciously given permission to use. He does a bunch of awesome covers of songs from different video games and stuff, and is generally just a really friendly guy, so go check him out. Links in the description. Thanks to the Fight Night crew, who I play Under Night with every single week, and who helped me get footage for the video. You know who you are, you fuckers. And, of course, a million thank yous to all my friends who encouraged and supported me to make this all the way through. I tend to have a lot of trouble staying focused on something, and completing personal projects can be a big challenge for me. So, all the support and feedback helped me motivate myself to finish it all the way through, and I'm just so thankful. I love you guys to death. Thank you. So, is this going to be something I start doing on the regular? I'm not sure. I had a lot of fun making the video, but for now, I don't really know if I want to make regular content on this channel. I can't guarantee I'll make any more in the near future, even. But if you want to see more, I recommend following me on Twitter. I post there pretty frequently, and if I get another idea for a video, that's probably the first place to hear about it. Otherwise, subscribe, I guess? That feels really weird to say, but maybe something will pop up sometime, I don't know. If you really can't get enough of me, I do a podcast with my friends called We Hate Anime every second Saturday over on my friend Mike's channel. We go through different anime we're watching, but also a bit of personal stories, video games, and generally whatever interests us. It's fun, you might like it. And, yeah. That's it. How do you end one of these?